Hello, everybody. This is Debby Enoe from Teacher Success Coach. I have not been on last week because, so that wasn't happening last week. So we kind of postponed it for this week because we thought, okay, people are at home Christmas Eve, so it'd be quite nice coming on and introducing the show as a continuation. So once again, it's another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. As you guys know, every week I come with a female educator from around the world who have been teaching before COVID and during COVID and now after COVID. Well, not too sure after because we're still in COVID. We're now in something different as well. So sharing some of the experiences of what it was like, before COVID and what it's like now going back into the classroom 18 months on. It's been challenging for a lot of educators. So it's really nice when educators come on to share their journey with us. So we know that we are not alone as educators. We are in different countries, but we share very much the same journey. So I've gotten an educator from the UK. I don't normally have my fellow colleague because normally it's across the waters I'm getting people. So it's really, really nice when I actually have an educator from England, who is going to come on and share her story with us. Introduce yourself, Ingrid. Thank you very much for coming on. I am really grateful that, you actually come on to share your experience with us, so introduce yourself.
Thank you, Debbie. And welcome to everybody who's listening on Facebook, who's listening with us live. My name is Ingrid Dover Vidal. I am a high school teacher, high school trained teacher. I qualified back in '83. So yes, I know many, many decades ago. And I've been teaching English, drama, RS, and various other things, as well as being a special needs teacher prior to 2017 for about 16 years. So I'm very grateful to come and share my experiences as a teacher and also what I then went on to do back in 2017, which was to go and write, put together my poetry anthology, which is called Make It Shine. And it's based on my educational experiences, my mentoring experiences with students, and just my desire to help to develop their linguistic diversity, to make the most of themselves as individuals, as students, as learners. And as a teacher, I've been able to combine the two of those things along the way. And yes, indeed, I'm looking forward to sharing just how things have evolved, especially over the last 4 years, and more particularly over the last 2 years with the onset of the COVID variant.
Right, thank you very much. The beautiful thing is, as well as an educator, you're also an author. So it's really nice to combine both of them. It's really lovely because, especially during this time, because the children there's so many issues with them. It's really nice to get out of them their creative juice.
Yes.
So I could imagine that.
Yes.
Okay, well, 18 months on, what are some of the challenges and triumphs that you have experienced going back into the classroom?
Well, a number of them, I'd say. I remember exactly, if I can be allowed to go right back to just before COVID began. I think I remember teaching right up to about the 17th or the 18th of March.
Me too.
Watching school prepare, watching students. At that time, I was doing supply teaching, just again for the flexibility as an author, so I can go into schools and teach when I want to and go and do the workshops when I want to. So at that stage, I was in about a 3 or 5 week placement at a school up in Hillingdon. And as I watched them prepared, and I knew obviously it was all new to everybody, but I watched the school carefully orchestrate things, make sure all the students' needs, everybody had their laptop or who didn't have would get access. And it was a major operation. And then again, being at home and then lockdown and going back into the schools. I think like the students, I myself, as a supply teacher, more than the students, felt a little bit as it wasn't your school. When it is your school, then you have more knowledge about what's going on. When you come in as a supply teacher, a bit more of an outsider. You're not privy to all the messages. You haven't got your email. Most schools, unless you're very long term. So I was doing daily supply. So sometimes you'd have to come in and just pick things up. Things weren't always explained exactly, all the protocols, but you could pick it up and do whatever made me feel safe in terms of hand washing, doors open, you just have to wear an extra coat. But we got through that. And I suppose knowing that everybody was going through the same thing was a strength, made me feel a part of the school. I'd ask questions, again, to ensure my own safety and the safety of students. In terms of learning that was taking place at that time, again, there were expectations, but again, I picked up that, like the other staff, were encouraged to, as much as they could, you set the task for the students, and you're there to try to enable them to stay on task. But those were challenging days coming back into school. And then more recently, I decided, one of the things I decided when I was out of school was that as a supply teacher, obviously one's not getting paid. Some people are lucky if they got furloughed during those times. So we kind of, I think as supply teachers, suffered a great wave of insecurity, of uncertainty in terms of financial support, where it was coming from. It wasn't always easy. And then of course I had surgery in November. I thought, well, shouldn't I with all the things going on? But I thought, yes, go ahead. And I had some surgery on my knee, which is much better right now. And when therefore I felt whole for myself, I really then felt like I don't want that kind of existence anymore. I felt like I personally, as the students do, need a sense of belonging to a place when everything else is at sea. I felt I don't want to be the fish swimming in the sea from port to port anymore. And even if it meant me, sitting down and, counting the cost, weighing things up financially, I thought, you know what, I want to become a part of a school. I could see needs in the children that went beyond the academic remit. And there were not always people available to meet those needs. And I thought, if I'm in a school, again, my status as a cover supervisor is very different from that of a supply teacher. Supply teachers, generally, students view us more as somebody standing. I have difficulty with that, a substitute. I've even written a poem about the way in which supply teachers are seen. And to a large extent, I think the schools need to look at that image and how they themselves can make people who are coming into the school and enabling the learning to continue. We play a very vital role, as the government is now asking retired teachers or people to come in to fill those gaps, because there's a gap. There is a major gap. And I'm glad in a way that I'm free enough that I'm not just 5 days a week attached to one school, but at the same time, 3 days is enough for me to go in, to be there, to be the constant face for those children who have, sometimes I've seen the same children in one school 3 times, 3 lessons I've covered the same, but then they're joyful because they know me. And it's having that kind of intimacy that can be built up over the time, being in the same place. That has enabled me to feel as well, I'm a part of something. I contribute a lot more than just encouraging their learning. But I get in there, and as I'll share later, I'm able to add to their sense of what's important, just kind of like challenge their value system, so that they can understand what they've got and how they can make the most of the situation that they are in and that we're all in.
It is so very true, because I'm just listening to you talking about supply teachers, and I too am a supply teacher. And there's sometimes you feel as if you are there filling the gap, but we feel more than the gap.
Absolutely.
And it is so interesting that some schools value you far more than others. Others just see you as, oh yeah, you only supply teachers, but then you have some of them who realize that you are crucial to the whole, to the whole puzzle. And there's great appreciation.
Yes.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, thank you very much for that. How has things changed in relationship to classroom discipline? Because that's something I've actually had a lot of challenge with.
Mm.
in terms of classroom discipline. You know, how do you think things have changed in relationship to that?
Well, sometimes with other teachers, I get to, when I started at my new school where I work 3 days a week, I observed the protocols. I think it was important for me to see how other teachers maintain the discipline, how they are able to have workable relationships with the young people, being aware of all the other influences upon their lives that impinge upon them when they leave school outside the classroom. The issues with with ill health, with mental health issues, and just how teachers are more aware of things, that there's more training put in place for members of staff to know how to deal with things, and people are kept in the loop, and are more sensitive to, again, staff needs, that staff are seen as important bodies within the school, and that they are valued. And even especially as a supply teacher, if I go to another school, the person in charge of cover will say, thank you for coming in. That thank you goes a long way. And similarly, when I help the students with their work, or I say, okay, you get on with your work. If you're working really well, I will write a poem about you. And they're so encouraged that I want to write a tribute poem about them, or I read them a tribute poem, which is in my book that I've written about another student. And so, oh, Miss, will you write one about me? All of a sudden, they've gone beyond just the work they're doing. And I use it as a carrot towards the end of the lesson. You've got to get the work done. This is not put down your pens, we're just going to do poetry. You've got a task, there's a teacher expectation. It's my job to supervise, to ensure that they maximize their ability according to the work that's been set by their absent members of staff.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Thank you. I love the way you actually use the poetry as a way of getting them to do the work, know. And that's really is really beautiful. For me, what I tend to do is, because I do a lot of meditation, and students are curious about meditation. So that's one of the things I get them to do, in terms of, okay, we could do a 3-minute meditation, and they're reminding you, Miss, you did say you're going to do the meditation. I said, oh, yes. So it's really nice, especially as we are supply teachers, and we have so much experience that there's so many other things we can use, like a carrot and a stick to support them in terms of discipline.
Absolutely. So
Thank you.
It does help being in the same school, and I'm glad. I think because there's such a need for teachers to be covered at the moment, we've got more of a monopoly. We've got more of a voice. We've got more of a choice than we've had before. We can decide where we want to go, where meets our needs, and locally is more likely to meet our needs. And again, it enables us to go back to the same school, which again is good to reduce contact with too many people coming into the school, which again, we're working hand in hand with school with that, so that the children will get used to the familiar face, they'll get used to the discipline. We as outsiders get used to the way in which that school disciplines the children, and therefore they're not less likely to feel they can get something over on Miss or Sir, because we know the system, we have access, we know who to report things to, and things are more likely to get followed through, which gives the children, I think, a security, whereas they could be feeling very at sea with everything that's going on, and a multitude. If things were like things were 2 years ago, when people, supply teachers might decide, okay, I didn't like that school, or things didn't go that well, I'm not going back. We have that choice, but the fact that people are willing to commit to a particular area, so that the children can have the continuity of cover, and that they know where they stand. I enjoyed Christmas as a supply teacher, just the joy that I had. I even went to the music department and borrowed the guitar, borrowed the drum. We had Christmas end of term. And probably something that, because it's a part of me, like you said, you bring something of yourself to your workplace. You share something of yourself, and perhaps, and it's nice to do that. It's nice to give. And when children get given to, they automatically want to give back. The amount of applause that I've had for doing a poem or engaging them, involving them in it after they finish their work. It's been amazing. I really felt like I've had an end of term with those students on supply, as well as in my other role as a cover supervisor.
Thank you. Right, we've also had a number of schools I've been working in. One of the things, some schools more than others, they keep on talking about the concept of lost learning. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, often I overhear in the staff room, I overhear staff they have meetings at the end of the day, especially the TAs, when they talk about students, TAs or heads of department or just subject leaders. They're talking about discussing the children and looking at the progress. They test them regularly with their work or look at the assessments, and therefore they're able to see, where the gaps are. And like you said, the lost learning, that whereas some of them are now in year 8 and they might have lost a lot of the time in, year 7, the kids themselves say, oh, miss, but we missed out on this. We would have done this in food tech if we had been here, etc., etc. So I think both staff and students are conscious of the lost time. And you feel for the students. I asked the girl to come up to me with her book and to show me the book. And although I was covering, it wasn't an English lesson I was covering, another subject, but I still said to her, so what grade are you going for in English? I said, and she wasn't sure of what it was. I suggested a few things, and then I suggested, what book are you reading right now? For me, I could, but my English teacher brain just clicks in, whatever the subject, because I know that these kids are going to do better if their literacy skills are better, because they're writing in English across the curriculum. And I know that therefore, that's probably one of the areas, probably there's been less reading, there's been less accessing information, less time to develop that creativity. But, work's been set without perhaps the stimulation of the classroom. It's harder to get that online and the interaction. So I think some of them have missed out on that. And I just encourage them. I said, if you can get extra lessons for this, if school's running extra things, attend. I'm showing them there's a need there, and they could probably, and they say, yes, miss, I'll check it out, miss. And they're willing to listen. They're not, what's the word? They're not proud and defensive and saying you're not my English teacher, but they're seeing that I care enough to say, or if it's a handwriting issue or something, if I can see a need that, like you said, because of the lost learning, these kids aren't lazy. They want to give their best, but for motivational sake or circumstances, they've been set back a bit. But a number of schools are trying to compensate for that. My daughter's school alone, they've already given out a program of lessons that will be happening on Saturday mornings. She's in year 11. So schools are already, they're having to plan. They want the kids to do well, especially if they're in their final year. But along the way, because it's not just year 11, obviously the whole school has been affected. So I know that probably, head teachers, heads of faculty will be making, getting staff to consider how we can move things on, and hopefully communicating to students and parents so that if there's anything else that they can do, if they need an extra tutor, if there's funding for it. There's different organizations that are trying to, one I worked with in the summer called PetXI, who they'll target schools during the summer, again, catch-up sessions, just mainly to boost their confidence, because our kids right now, it's not that they're not able, but they don't think that they are able. And it's a matter of encouraging them, motivating them, and it's the building of resilience. I think a lot of our kids now, their resilience is a little flat. They don't think they can, or they're not thinking about, will it even matter? And so it's good to watch the Rashleys of this world succeed, and let them see examples that yes you can. And there's a number of pockets of work like that going on in the community for our young people to emulate and to believe, yes, I can. And my role as somebody passing through a school, as a cover supervisor, as a mainstream teacher, or whatever my role is at that time, to supply the knowledge to enable them, I think is a very vital role in supporting staff who are working their socks off. I know, I've been there, we've been at the chalk face. We know the reality of that. We're under no delusions as to how hard they're having to work. And so I'm glad to be a part of that. I did say I'm happy not to do the marking or the preparation, but I'll give of myself. I'll pick it up, I'll learn it, I'll get a cousin to it, enough to convey it so that they then can pick up the baton and run with it. That's it.
Yes, it is so very true. You know, that's one of the challenges, the marking and the prep. I'd rather not do the marking and the prep too. You know, I think we've done enough of those.
Yeah, we've done our innings, decades of innings. So it's a chance to motivate them, and so I do. So
yep. Exactly.
In fact, there's one poem.
Thank you for that.
Would you like to hear one of the poems? There's one of the poems called "In Praise of Learning."
Yes.
That I tend to read to the kids. I read it to the kids who are in year 11. I read it to the kids who are in year 10 who had the task of writing a letter, transactional writing they were doing. You had to write a letter to justify why they should have a prom. So it helped me to say, these are some of the things that as a year 11, you'd be grateful for. And it goes like this: in praise of learning. School's out for summer, take off the uniform, a brand new independence, no longer time to mourn for school day friends who we will miss more than French or arithmetic, and favorite teachers. Yes, sir, please, miss. They work so hard to help me see my dream become a reality. And this is the bit that I think whoever they are, they could feel it. As I reflect on lessons learned, on knowledge gained and merits earned, let me not squander all I've got. Grasp opportunities, seize the lot. The clock of learning never stops, but signals new openings, new challenges, new plots. When faced with disappointment, with courage do press on. May you know the joy of reaching goals that move your life along. As this hour closes, may another soon begin. And whichever path you choose, be determined, you can win.
Fantastic.
And it's messages like that I leave them with, because like you said, they're kind of like feeling like, I want to run, but I just can't even walk right now. They're feeling like academically disabled in some ways. Perhaps if they haven't got a tutor outside helping them, or if people have been sick in their family, like the pressures, the challenges that we've all had to deal with. And for a young person, it can be even more daunting because they've never been here before.
Exactly. And plus, some of them are going through, teenage years, like the puberty, etc. So there is real issues there by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to remember those.
On a normal condition, they have all of that. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything that you have learned in the last 18 months that you have implemented in your teaching?
I think just engaging the need to get things started really, really quickly, the need to take on board, just to be a keen observer of routines. I think when things are all amiss around us, routine is important. It's important to be, to adapt quickly to a particular teacher's way of teaching a subject, or to adapting the PowerPoint that you've been given, so that the kids, that you're there on time, that things start well, and that they've got that security within them. And again, just the merits, the way that students ultimately work better when they're being praised. And at the school I'm at, definitely it's all right. Both schools that I go to, mention the good things first when you're giving feedback, and to give them feedback, and to give them chance to, again, to call each other higher. That it's not just our jobs as the teachers to motivate them, but and that their words do matter. I do encourage them to think about the impact of their words on each other, so that it doesn't become a stumbling block to their learning. I mean, you know, it's hard to do this job without caring for the kids. It's not a financial, you know, it's a vocation why we become teachers.
Yep.
And it's good to watch them succeed and to know that they can. And if they take away one thing, if an attitude changes within a lesson, because you've also learned to speak to the children differently. I think it's thinking about our own mental health. I'd say probably 10 years ago, we taught and we spoke less about our own mental health. But having been through what we've all been through, I think lessons where I know that I'm at peace with my mental health, that I've gone in there mentally prepared for anything that students are likely to throw at me, and that the variables have risen in terms of what that can be. And it's so important for them to have the calm teacher. Yes, the child might well have spoken rudely or done such and such, but you know, restorative justice is important. You know, different holy books talk about the importance of, you know, don't let the sun go down while you're still angry. And I think it's important for these kids not to have to internalize anger, but to be given opportunities to diffuse situations. And we know, as people covering lessons, you know, we don't know the kids, they don't know us initially, and it could be easy. I've seen times when things could easily blow up, and the other times when, you know, you take a step back and you think, you know what, let me take a different slant on this. Let me talk to this child outside. Let me speak quietly. So I've learned to modify the way in which I approach children to get the best out of them, because we don't know each other very well. So that's also helped to make better progress. Again, you get more job satisfaction out of it than perhaps I did in the past. Yeah, and talking to people, because the other thing I think I didn't do that much before was you go and you have a lesson, especially if in your brain you're saying that was a bad lesson, or if somebody was observing they wouldn't feel it went well, or there's a conflict now between you and that student, and then you'd say, you know, to go and talk to perhaps, you know, like your line manager, or talk to, you know, another colleague in your department, or like in our cover team. Being a part of a team really helps. You know, I feel like people are looking out for me. They'll say, "Oh, girl, how did that go, Ingrid? How was that lesson?" You know, especially when you're new. I was shadowing people when I just started at my new school. You know, they didn't just chuck you in the deep end.
Okay.
They held my hand. They say, "Oh, come on, I'm covering this lesson. You can come and you can just be a TA and go around." So that way, the kids got to know me, staff got to know me. It was a gradual and gentle into the classroom for about a week, and then boom, after that. But still, even after that, they didn't think it wasn't going to be sink or swim. They'd still inquire, "How you doing? How's that class?" And it's just important to be real with people and not put up a pretense, because then you go away and you're shouldering that hurt or pain or insecurity, and it could have a negative impact on the next class you teach if you don't then deal with it. I mean, I know it's kind of like, you know, a basic thing, and I think it's not just about teaching, but any kind of like work situation where there are volatile individuals, or you yourself, you know, we all carry stuff with us. We're all in this situation right now, lockdown, not to lockdown, COVID, no COVID, you know, there's lots of things, and we want to try to work together with each other to have that semblance of peace, so that we can be there for the kids. We are there to support them as opposed to there to support us. And yet, even though that's the case, I still often go away. Like I said, oftentimes it's the students I'll remember when I go home, when I come home and share to my family, to my daughter or to my husband. The kids have had an impact on me. The kids have given me a joy. The kids have applauded the poem, or the kids have said, "Thank you, miss. Okay, have a good Christmas, miss." The kids give back so much. And those are, you know, the unspoken, the rewards of giving. I see my purpose as more than just, even though I haven't got a tutor group, it means then I'm free to encourage more I'm not restricted to a group. Whoever becomes in my path, whoever I'm timetable to cover that day, to supervise at lunchtime that day, all of those opportunities, being in a school, doing a lunchtime supervision, it's a different setup from the classroom. So again, but you've got chance to relate to the children on a number of different levels. And I appreciate that about the school where I'm at, that we're doing break times, that you're seen as normalized, but not just somebody who covers their lesson. You're a part of the school staff, you're a part of the community, and schools that foster community, especially with the cover supervisors or supply staff, have a better impact on the smooth running of the school and on the relationships within that school community.
Yep, and they have a greater outcome, which is very true.
Absolutely. And you feel as if you contributed to that, you know. So
yeah, it is very, very true. Thank you for that. You're right. One of the things is, how would you say that the pandemic affected you on a physical basis, intellectual basis, emotional, social, and spiritual basis? How would you say that the pandemic affected you in pies, in all those areas?
Okay. Well, initially, it gave me time to reflect. A number of people, we weren't in the classroom. So time away made me clearer about what I wanted. Whereas before I was happy to just, you know, be on daily supply or do a 3-week block somewhere. I thought, no, I need, for me, in my personal space, I needed to belong. I needed to be part of something. I want some permanence. And I think a number of teachers who have been doing supply previous to that, even if it meant taking a pay drop, our mental health, our sanity, our self-fulfillment, we had time to think about that. We had time to reflect on what it was like going into schools just after the first lockdown, and when schools opened up, and just how, I don't know, cold perhaps things were, because people were still just trying things out and seeing how best the things to work. People who had responsibilities within the school, and how to handle you know, the students coming back in with all the additional impact of them being away, and like you said, the emotional, I mean, all the ways in which they were affected. So that first lockdown gave me lots of time to think. I felt a bit redundant, and that again spurred me on. I did some writing during that time. I also gave me more time with family, more time, did things with my kids, my husband, building things, as I think many people did while we were not in school. But then it still didn't fulfill me. It didn't fulfill the brain. I still needed to be active. I needed to be in school, and that's what made me decide, you know what, I might not have had an interview for, you know, like for a permanent position for a good 15, 16 years, but I wanted it again. And that made me then, and people encouraged me to, you know, go and, you know, get a job as an English teacher. Or I thought, well, I love still teaching the subjects, but I didn't want to do the whole 4 yards, as they say, or 5 yards, as they say. And so I found that happy medium. And of course, as well as that, physically, because I felt I wanted time for self-care, for more time with family. And so, you know, at least one day a week, I'd go to aqua aerobics. And I want to encourage more people to make use. I mean, I think a lot of people have gone part-time now with their work, even if they were full-time before. They've seen people who were in certain places have moved now to places where there are gardens, the emphasis of the outdoor, the great outdoor people want, not in this weather, but generally just to have more of in a natural environment, if it's possible, or just, you know, to go for walks, but to make the most of the opportunities, and where the opportunities don't exist, to make those opportunities ourselves. I'm still working on the self-help bit. I'm still working on the early nights. I'm still working. I'm a work in progress.
Yes.
But you know, when school's on, I mean, more relaxed now, but when school is on, you know, you've got to go to bed certain times. Otherwise, there'll be a knock-on effect, right? But right now, when things are a bit more fluid, the old habits come back. But then it's something, it's a work, like I said, we're a work in progress, no matter how long we've been teaching. And it's good to be able to have an impact. They might not have what do you call it? They might not have an office for it, but within yourself, I believe within myself, I'm having an impact on the individuals that I'm interacting with the team that I've been placed within. When you have an interview for a job, you don't know all those variables. All you know is you want to be part of something more. You want to be able to share your expertise. You want to be able to reproduce your assets, your merits within students who need that sense of purpose and direction in their lives. And you can share your errors, you can share your mistakes, you can share what kept you going. And I think that's the biggest thing, sharing the things which helped me, that built my resilience, so that when they feel that they can't go anymore or they can't do, that they can see that I've done, or I point the way to others through history who have done, and therefore they can try or they can go as well. So it's very motivational, and I'm really glad to have this opportunity to have those kind of impacts. And like I said earlier, with literacy as well, I try to do that to encourage them to make the most, to bring a dictionary to school, little things which might make a difference. If I could afford it, I'd give them all one. But I know things have changed. Young people today tend to be more on the computer, but then less self-discovery happen. So we're working on it. I'm sure there are different projects out there that would want to do that, would want to encourage the young people to make the most and to be pathfinders themselves.
That's so very true. Because one of the questions I was going to ask you was, how do you think, or in what way would you say that your health, whether or not physical, emotional, how has it affected your ability to teach? But you've actually answered that, because you say in terms of, the motivation aspect. Also, earlier on, you spoke about, using your poetry as a vehicle to, to help them in terms of where they're at. So that's really, really good. The beautiful thing about that is, one of the things I say all the time, there's areas in art that really help children to progress. It also helps them to find themselves. And I see it far more than just the academic, things like art, things like music, things like poetry, things of dance. I find those tools are far more powerful than just the academic. And I think that we need to, with young people far more, because we areas have been fostered. So it's really, the fact that it's really powerful, really, really powerful. It's just really, really beautiful. Right, thank you for that. What 3 tips can you give moving forward?
For the young people moving forward, for teachers moving forward?
Both.
Well, for young people moving forward, I'd like them to have a thirst for knowledge still, and to believe that all is not lost. Sometimes we start off with a bit of a, I wouldn't say a handicap, but things setback. But it's in overcoming those setbacks that their character is formed, and so therefore to look for the challenge. Sometimes kids won't, what herd immunity is. People will, if they're not pushed, or if everybody else isn't going the extra mile, they don't feel like they should. But to let them take that responsibility for it, set goal setting, just letting them making sure that they know where they are, that they've got a realistic view of their achievement, and that parents are also engaged in that, so that even times like during the holidays, they can get together and, you know, commit to moving things forward, whether it's by saying, okay, I'm going to read X amount of books in a week, and you know, maybe an incentive from parents to encourage them to do that, so that parents have got, again, that sense of literacy across the curriculum that will enable their kids to make greater progress. And if there are any particular areas where they need help, extra help at school, and if it's just to find out just what's available, and where, if it's not available, then again, how to perhaps find out from other parental groups, whether it's online or community, but just support. I think there's a great need for support to get together. Often I bump into parents at parents' evenings, and I might see who are my kids' friends, and then I'll link up with one other parent. And if there's ways that perhaps they can be tutored together, so just, you know, especially if finances are low, so that they can have that extra time, or just, again, speaking to teachers at school and finding out what, you know, what is accessible, what extra sessions are possible, or just making sure that they're clear on their best learning strategies. Because sometimes they don't achieve, because they say, I've revised, I've done it, I've done the work, and yet something's quite not sticking, and that can be frustrating. You know, many failures. I took my driving lessons 4 times. On the 5th time I passed it, but one of the things that drove me to do it was that I needed it. And sometimes but I could have been discouraged and not done it after the 3rd one. But then having little young people push chair size that time, I thought, I really need to do this now. And I motivated myself, and I had friends around me who encouraged me to go the extra mile. And having those friends, accountability is probably what I'm saying as well. Having somebody in your corner, even when you don't feel like doing it. You know, as teachers, we need that. The young people need that, again, to help their mental health, so that they got a healthy view of how they're doing, and people in their corner to say, yes, you can. I think it's important during this time. That will have to uplift them spiritually, emotionally, in every which way. And I hope that they can make goals small enough that they can see achievement. Make them accessible goals, so that they don't get discouraged when they, you know, that they can see the little steps, not just looking to the GCSEs, not just looking to the end of year items. And again, valuing themselves. I think not just the end result, but again, enjoying the journey. And like you said, Debbie, making use of those creative juices that I know that's like I said about Christmas. I had to play the guitar. To me, Christmas wasn't Christmas without me having a guitar in my hand. You know, I've done it at church, you know, I'll do it at the school. Even if I'm a visitor, I'll say, can I borrow your guitar? Can I have a drum? One of the kids came up, they played the drum. I'm sure that child went off, you know, they clapped for us both. You know, they clapped. I said, clap yourself whenever I get them involved. So it's not just me performing to them, but I'm involving them. So I think more of those things that they can be involved in inside of the school, acknowledge the ones that are involved in outside of school, so that they can, you know, that to see that all those things contribute to their healthy mental health.
Wow, you know, the fact that you had that satisfaction of playing the guitar and, you know, having all this, you know, those lovely things, that was really nice. You know, that's what I had in one of the schools last year, but this year I didn't even have any of those, you know, because I was teaching sixth form, and there was so, you know, that, you know, you lose the creativity when they get that age. And I keep on saying to them that you need to remember what you did when you were in the lower years of the school and recreate that.
Yes.
Because when they get to sixth form, all of those things, all the beautiful gems are lost. You know, they're too busy doing other things. And I think that's one of the beauty when you are, you know, when you're teaching the younger years, you know, the lovely innocentness is so beautiful.
This is good.
Yeah,
It's very good. So well, I hope that we continue to make a difference for many more years to come.
Yes. Have you got anything else you want to say to us say to me before we wrap up?
All I can say is that we're building on the foundation of our ancestors.
Mm.
And therefore, even at this time, especially Christmas time, when you remember those who no longer with us, I remember my mum, and I remember when she told me, she had a dream that said, go and get Ingrid. She's got children to teach. Those were her words that motivated me. I mean, I know I wanted to teach. First, she wanted me to be a nurse because she missed out on nursing training. And but by the time I was in year 9, I couldn't stand the sight of blood, and I thought, you know what, I want to teach. So it's been something in my mind, and I'm glad that I've still got the opportunity to fulfill it. Who knows? Maybe down the road I'll say, well, let me specialize a little bit. Let me do a bit of English. I do tutoring as well. But I just think being an educator is something that you don't give up. It's part of you wherever you are. If you're in the laundry, or just you're educating yourself. And I think the fact that I'm still also thinking, I've still got a lot to learn. I want to learn more. I want to pass on the history of culture. My dad would have been 100 this year, just like Prince Charles. And I thought one project I had in mind was to write a book and get the nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews around and show them that their heritage, if you like, their Guyanese heritage, which they don't know much about. Many of them haven't been to Guyana, haven't had that opportunity. But I still think, again, children in general, especially children from African and Caribbean communities, especially from the Caribbean communities who perhaps are a little bit disjointed. And I think knowing where you're coming from and understanding the journey is also half of the battle won. And that's, I know it's helped to empower me as an individual to keep going, regardless of how many times I fall, and still you rise. And I think that's a message that, again, is part of my poetry. But I think it's not just a message that's related just to children of African and Caribbean backgrounds, because most of the kids that we teach in Northwest London, it's much more varied than that. Strong Asian communities and Romanian communities, and all the children respond well to that message of wanting to make the most of themselves and helping them to see themselves positively, and just helping. I'm just glad still to be able to be in that position to help to direct them to the right pathways, or along the pathways that they won't give up, and that they'll pursue their dreams, and they'll have dreams regardless of where they're coming from. This is Mum.
Yeah,
this was Susan at 70.
Oh, we bought. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, that's Mum and her 70th birthday party.
Oh, wow.
You see the resemblance? You see the resemblance?
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. It's interesting what you say in terms of teaching, because my teaching journey was, I didn't want to be a teacher.
Oh.
Teaching called me, because it's interesting, because this week we broke up on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, one of the students said to me, Miss, are you staying in the school? I said, no. And the conversation came as, Miss, why did you become a teacher? And there was, the students always seem to ask me those questions. Yes. And I said to them, I didn't choose teaching, teaching chose me. And I said, as a result of that, I said, I could actually see it. I said, because there's sometimes you are destined for something. Yeah. And for me, teaching was not, because what I wanted to do was research, but teaching chose me. And I said to this, and one student said, Miss, you really do enjoy teaching. I said, I love it with a passion. It is so obvious when teachers love teaching, when an individual loves teaching, the students actually could see it on you, because they would walk in and they actually realize, oh my goodness, because even in some of the classes, one student said to me this week, Miss, I've learned so much in your lesson in such a short time than I've learned in the whole academic year. And it really is, it's interesting, because as I keep on saying, the teacher they had didn't like teaching. All she did was complain about it. So therefore, if you're going to be complaining about it, therefore you will not get the results. You cannot be in teaching complaining.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how challenging the journey is. The fact that either we chose it or it chose us, we need to demonstrate the purpose.
Yeah.
Because these children are looking on us for support.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because this is something students constantly, say to me, Miss, why do you teach? Teaching is difficult. Da, da, da. I said, yes, but I love teaching. And they could actually see it from you. So teaching is like, I was reading a meme. Teaching is not for the faint-hearted. That was the meme said, teaching is not for the faint-hearted. And I totally agree with that because it's not an easy task. We could talk about it. It's rewarding, it's fulfilling, but it ain't easy, especially now.
Definitely. I think because everybody's living the reality when they come home from work, teachers wise, student wise, there's so much commonality in terms of experiences that journey makes you forget the things that are different to a large extent, because you're working so much to make the majority of the students get them along the path that you want them to go down. You want them to do well. It's not merely it's about their lives as opposed to just about the exam results. And just so that they all succeed, so that they won't drop out of school, so that they'll believe in themselves and in their abilities. And those are some, without a qualification as a motivator. We wear so many hats, just like a mother or a father. You wear so many hats. So I think it's really good that not good, it's an opportunity. And like I put in my poem,
I like the way you correct yourself quick.
There's a point. I've got to read this last poem. Do I have time, Debbie, to read this
Yes,
last
yes,
poem?
you do. Yes, you do. Don't worry. Yes, you do.
This is the poem that I wrote for our son, Jelani, when he was about year 4 or year 5 at school. I tell my daughter and when I read it to kids, I say it's not just about him, but definitely it's one I write when I give it to people and personalize it. I just put to our son, but it could easily be, to anybody's son, anybody's daughter. These are the things that I'm sure a parent, right, or a parent giver would want to say to them. You are a credit to your parents. You are the apple of their eye. You are the promise that Sir gave you. If you want to, you can fly. You can soar above the clouds. You can see the vision through. Whatever you accomplish, it's up to God and up to you. So don't be limited by the past. You aim straight, you aim high. And with a steady pull, you just watch those arrows fly. You may not always hit your target or rejoice with a bull's eye. But as your quiver's full, keep at it. Have another try. Apply all that you are learning. Be inquisitive. Keep yearning. Be the best that you can be. Go the distance and be free from nagging doubts and fears that could cripple you for years. Unleash that mighty, untapped power. Be blessed, be bold, and seize the hour.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
And that's my message.
That is so powerful.
Just make the most of the opportunities. And I hope that they do. I'd like to devise some kind of a program where, yes, the poetry could be there, could go back and work with young people a week after week. It needs to be devised there. Maybe you can help me with that. Because otherwise,
actually, we need to have some conversation on that actually, because there was something happening one of the school I was teaching at, and I realized that in terms of abuse, students are not even if you ask them in terms of, abuse in relationship, they don't even know what you're talking about. There's so many things as educators we see in all the time that we need to start unpacking.
Yes.
There's so much, So
we are ambassadors.
Yeah.
For the good.
Yes. Thank you so very much, Ingrid. It was an absolute pleasure. I just love it. Thank you so much. It was brilliant. And, it just reminds us in terms of as educators, how our job is never done. There's so much more we can do, and there's so much more that we're doing.
Yes.
Education is not an easy job, but it is also a very fantastic and rewarding job. Thank you everybody for listening on. I'm having a break until the first week in
January.
Having said that, I just realized I probably not having a break because I have an educator from India. Yes, because of the timing, so the show is slightly earlier because of the 12 hours lapse. Yeah. So I just realized as I was just, concluding, no, there is no break because I've got someone coming on next Friday.
Okay.
So yes. Anyway, people, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for listening. Share the educators' journey, because there's so much as educators, and educators, it would be so wonderful if you guys come and share your journey with us, because although we poles apart in terms of country, we all have so much in common.
Yes.
And we are all on the, we are on the same journey, because our vision and our mission are very much the same in different countries, but the mission and the vision very much the same.
Yes, I applaud that.
So thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening, morning, night, where you are, and have a fantastic day off tomorrow. Have happy holiday, etc. Stay blessed.